Play your spells like Gandalf and charge them at the right time as mages. Build your defense and minions too in Chroma Arcana.
And today we'll be teaching you how to play Chroma Arcana, game designed by Mo Shoa and published by Rocknest Games. And check out the tutorial video we've done as well for the cooperative Tyrant Hunt expansion.
And hi everyone, it's Stella.
And Tarrant, welcome to Meeple University.
And hey, if you enjoyed this video after watching, like, subscribe and comments. You know what to do? Alright, let's grab some popcorn and let's get to the classroom.
Chroma Arcana is a two-player battle game in which players take on the roles of mages fighting against each other in a world of multicolored magic. Players will play their spells and charge them to power them for their effects, timing it as best they can to get the best combination of active minions and spells, as well as once-off bursts to damage their opponents and their efforts. Whoever is first to drain the other player's health will be the winner. Setting up the game involves assembling a deck of cards which you'll use for the battle. And in your first game you'll use the specific card combinations in the rulebook. When you're more familiar with the game, you'll draft your decks, and I'll explain that now. To begin, take player boards and choose a first player known as the attacker. The opponent is the defender. Take the cards from the ego box and deal 3 to each player. Simultaneously look through them and choose one to play, returning all the others to the box. This will be your character and individual player power for the game. From the box of chromatic cards, find one copy of each of the 4 chromatic spells and give one set to each player. These 4 spells form the start of your deck. Lay out the 8 colour boxes: red, green, blue, orange, void, gold, fortune and harmony. First the defender, then the attacker chooses one colour as their main colour for the battle. Your box will contain 16 cards. 2 sets of each of the 5 basic spells, 2 arcanas, 2 potions, 1 sigil spell, and 1 rote card, which is the card in landscape format. From these, for your main colour, take 1 set of basic spells, your sigil and 1 arcana, and add them to your deck. Take a potion and add it to your opponent's deck. Place your rote in this space of your player board, and return all other cards to the box. They won't be used in this game. Then choose 2 of the remaining 6 colours to be your minor colours. The attacker chooses both first, then the defender. Your 2 minor colours must be different to each other, but the 2 players may choose the same colours. From each of your minor colours, add 1 set of the basic spells and the arcana to your deck. Add 1 potion to your opponent's deck, and return the rest to the box. Once done, you'll have a deck of 26 cards which you shuffle. Draw 4 cards if you're the attacker, or 5 if you're the defender. After looking at your cards, you do have 1 chance to mulligan, setting aside your entire hand and redrawing before reshuffling. Finally, make supplies of the tokens: sand, ego, charge, and there'll be 2 health tokens, with each player placing one at a health of 9. For the others, the tokens are intended to be unlimited, and if you run out, use a substitute. You're now ready to play. Chroma Arcana is played in turns, starting from the attacker and going back and forward until someone has won the game. Your turn is resolved in the following steps, which must be resolved in order. These are grouped into 4 main steps: focus, prepare, cast magic, and refresh. And within each step, the sub-steps are also resolved in order. The first 4 bullet points on this card won't occur during your first turn, because you already need cards in play for them to occur. As such, we'll begin the explanation from the second bullet point of your prepare step. During this step, you'll use cards from your hand to either place spells or charge spells. You can do this any number of times that you can afford and in any order. Spells are any card with a number in the top left corner, and this makes up the majority of cards in your deck. If it has no number in its top left corner, it's considered an item, and there are two types, arcanas and potions. In this step, to place a spell, take a spell from your hand and put it into an empty slot in your spellbook. You have 4 slots, and you may willingly discard a previously placed spell to make space for another. Spells in your spellbook are simply text in a book. They have no effect while they're there. You will need to charge them by placing as many charge tokens on them as the number in the top left corner before you can cast them for their magic. In this step of your turn, you can charge a spell by discarding a card matching the colour of the spell to add 1 charge token to it. If the card is multi-chroma, then discarding it adds 1 charge to any one spell of one of its colours. And if the card is chromatic, which will also be indicated by a grey bar at the top, then it will match any colour of spell. This will apply to the special chromatic spells you received in setup, as well as items of all colours. If the card that you discard is an arcana, then it will charge your chosen spell by 2 charge instead of 1, as long as it matches the colour of the arcana. If the spell that you're charging is chromatic, then it can be charged by discarding any colour of card, and it's considered a match for any colour of arcana. Likewise, a multi-chroma can be charged by any matching card, and double charged by any matching arcana. Finally, for the purposes of this effect, your rote spell is considered a part of your spellbook, and you can charge that in the same way as all of your other spells. After prepare is cast magic. You must now take some sort of action with every spell in your spellbook, including your rote, which is either charged, meaning it has as many charge tokens as the requirement on the spell, or overcharged, meaning it has more. Your options are the same whether the spell is charged or overcharged, but some specific spells are more powerful if overcharged. In most cases, you're going to cast the spell, remove all charge tokens from it, and resolve its effect as appropriate. If the spell is a burst, showing the fireball icon, then resolve its effect and immediately discard it. If the card is a ward, represented by the shield, or if the card is an edict, represented by the scroll, add it to your active spells area. Nothing else happens at this point because the effects are triggered. For a ward, the effect will be triggered as soon as the trigger printed in bold occurs. An edict remains in play, giving you some sort of passive ability, which lasts until the focus step of your next turn. If the spell is a minion, then add it to your minion slot and place 3 sand tokens on it. Again, there's no immediate effect, and instead it automatically resolves its effect, if possible, at the start of your subsequent focus steps, and then loses 1 sand token, whether its effect worked or not. You can have at most 1 active minion, so if you cast another, you must discard the one you already have, discarding all of its remaining sand and placing 3 sand on the new one. And if a minion ever loses its last sand, whether your turn or your opponent's, immediately discard it. All minions, wards, and edicts above your board are collectively considered your active spells. Finally, if your rote spell is charged, you can also cast that. You spend the charges, resolve the effect. This will always be a burst type of spell, but you do not discard it. It remains on your board at all times. If you have multiple charged or overcharged spells, then you may cast them in any order. But you're not allowed to hold over a fully charged spell to a subsequent turn. If a spell is charged or overcharged but the timing is no longer opportune to play it, then you may choose to keep it in your spellbook without casting it, but you must return all charge tokens from it, bringing it back down to 0. This doesn't apply to uncharged spells. You're allowed to carry over partial charge on these spells from turn to turn. Once you're done with casting, move on to refresh. You may discard as many cards from your hand as you want, but you may keep no more than 2. Then you must draw back to 5 cards. If your draw deck runs out while you still have cards to draw, you must sacrifice 1 health, shuffle your discard pile to form a new draw deck, and continue drawing. Your opponent will then take their turn in full, and then it will come back to the start of your turn. This begins with the focus step, and we have already seen these 3 steps. First, resolve the effect on your active minion if you can. Then, remove 1 sand token from your active minion. Then, discard any active edicts. Finally, the last thing we haven't discussed is the first step of your prepare step, adding 1 charge to each non-rote spell. For each non-rote spell in your spellbook, add either 0 or 1 charge tokens to it. In this way, you can auto-charge your spells, and you can choose to hold back on the charge, again if the timing is inopportune to cast it. You can now go back to the step of playing spells to your spellbook, and discarding cards to charge them, as we saw before. The aim of the game is to attack your opponent and eliminate their health, and the main way to do this is by playing spells which have an effect which deals damage. When 1 damage is dealt to you, lower your health by 1. If you cast a spell which heals you, then restore your health by 1, up to a maximum of 10. Some other spell effects might include discarding sand tokens either from your opponent's minions or from your own as a cost of taking an action, adding sand to your minions to keep them around for longer, directly discarding your opponent's active spells, or forcing a prediction. When you predict, name a colour and draw your top card, and if it matches, including with a chromatic, then you get the prediction's effect. Either way, put the card on the bottom of your deck. Card effects might combo with other cards. This minion, for example, is more powerful if you have any wards in your active area. Wards and edicts have non-optional triggered effects. So for the first time you're dealt damage, you must use this ward's effect to block that damage, even if you'd prefer to wait and block a larger attack later. A ward is discarded after the first time it's used, unless of course some other effect saves it, like this one. A single action can often trigger a chain of different effects from both players' active spells. And if ever there are simultaneous effects, then the inactive player resolves all of theirs in whatever order they wish, followed by the active player. You also have 2 optional defensive effects at your disposal. Any time you are dealt any amount of damage, you may choose to discard an active minion, including all of its sand tokens, to block all of that incoming damage. Secondly, your deck contains a potion card in each one of your opponent's 3 colours. And if your opponent declares that they are casting a spell, you can play and remove from the game the potion of the matching colour to cancel the casting of that spell. The spell loses all of its charges but remains in your opponent's spellbook. Finally, there are many effects in the game which allow you to block damage. Blocking applies specifically to damage which is dealt to you. You can never use any type of spell or effect to mitigate the damage from an action which makes you sacrifice health. Finally, each player begins the game with 1 ego card, and this contains some sort of passive effect which you can use to your advantage throughout the game. For example, Zarya here gets to add charge tokens to minions immediately when adding them to the spellbook, meaning she can play minions more quickly. Many ego powers include this icon which refers to an ego token. Nuri, for example, gets 1 ego token after casting the rote spell, and can spend the 2 ego tokens to resolve the rote spell's effect without formally casting it. This effectively means Nuri's third use of every road spell is free, and comes with the added benefit of not triggering effects which are specific to casting spells. The game ends immediately as soon as any one player's health is reduced to 0. That player loses and the opponent wins, and in the rare case that both players lose their health simultaneously as the result of triggered effects, the game is a tie.
Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, maybe you'd like to watch this next one. Have a great day. Bye!